Ancient serpents, depart from this servant of God!
What does demon possession mean? How do the Orthodox view, that concept?
Yeah, Saint Silouan the Athonite, he gives a really clear explanation on this when he talks about how that possession really comes in different stages. When we hear the word possession, we tend to think of the Hollywood type of possession, where somebody has lost control of themselves because a demon is controlling them. This type of thing does happen. I know priests who have done exorcisms on people that were almost out of a Hollywood movie. I mean, literally people levitated off the ground from demonic power, people speaking in languages they didn't know, and some really horrific things. But this is very rare. This is very rare. The demons much more so want to make us not aware of them. They want to make us not think about the spiritual world at all and just become obsessed with this world, the comforts and pleasures therein. And so there are many lesser levels of possession that we all have to deal with. And what St. Silouan says is this. He says, if you love your enemies, this is a sign that grace is within you. But if you hate your enemies, it's a sign that a demon is within you instead. Well, there's a certain level of possession. So possession really goes in different stages. But this is why the Orthodox baptismal service begins with an exorcism. The very first thing we do is we stand in the back of the church, and the priest makes the sign of the cross and breathes on the candidates, and then does 3 prayers of exorcism.
Hey, about a week ago, I did a video about Malachi Martin, who is a Catholic priest who has written a bunch of books about how Satan has infiltrated the Catholic Church and how he'd done, tons of exorcisms, and he talks about demons and what have you. Anyway, it piqued my interest, and I thought I'd do a video about demonic possession in general and demons in general. So anyway, it certainly seems like the phenomenon of demon possession has been increasing in the last few years. And I'll talk about that and a lot of other things. Anyway, an Ivy League educated psychiatrist is convinced that there's a growing epidemic of demon possession in the world today, and that most everyday people now recognize the dark reality of this scary situation. Dr. Richard Gallagher, who boasts degrees from both Princeton University and Yale University, says that despite conflicting opinions within mainstream medical science, demonic possession is both real and rampant. With 25 years of experience under his belt as a private psychiatrist, he complements his 2 teaching positions at both New York Medical College and Columbia University. Dr. Gallagher believes he holds a unique vantage point in discerning between human and non-human or satanic behavior. So anyway, that guy's a heavy hitter, and if you want to learn more about it, just look him up. He's on the net, and, he's, like I say, he's a heavy hitter. I don't hold a very high opinion of most experts, but this guy seems like a real expert. Anyway, also, Pope Francis has also commented on the phenomenon, explaining to his followers that Satan is indeed a real being who's roaming the earth to devour souls like a lion. He wrote back in April that people shouldn't assume that the devil is just some myth, representation, symbol, figure of speech, or idea. Doing this causes people to let down their guard, he claims, making all of us more vulnerable. And doesn't that make sense? There's an old adage that the smartest thing the devil did was to convince people that he didn't exist.
The sun comes up, the sun goes down, and my hair is a symphony all its own. It's so beautiful, it takes my breath away.
Okay, now let's do a little analysis here. That's typically what I do in my spare time. I sit around and think up stuff, and everybody tells me I have an extremely analytical mind. Well, that's what I do. I sit around and analyze stuff. And I've analyzed this over the years, and this is what I've come up with. What are they, and what is evil? Well, what are they? They're evil. They're the personification of evil. But what is evil? Okay, evil is that which seeks to destroy. It's not chaos. Chaos is not evil. Chaos is the natural result of entropy, which occurs throughout nature. It's a perfectly natural phenomenon in the world order. Evil's quite different. Evil is what actively seeks to destroy things. Destroy life, what have you. Anyway, if evil seeks to destroy, then it must antecede good, but by its nature, it must have something to initially destroy. So in other words, it couldn't have existed prior to goodness, and it couldn't existed parallel to goodness. It had to have come into existence after the existence of goodness, because if it seeks to destroy, it would have to have something to destroy in the first place. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. Now, if it antecedes good, then it must be finite. It can't be omniscient and omnipotent like God would be. It couldn't. That would make it the equal of God. And since it came into existence after goodness did, it can't be. It has to be a finite thing. One place at one time. Now, we all agree that evil's everywhere in the world, so if that's the case, it must be a collection of finite beings. Many, all around. And if they are beings, then their influence must be projected by assigning them throughout the world and to people in particular. And that's why I believe each one of us has one. If I were the devil, ask yourself what the devil would do. If he had all these goons that worked for him, what would he do if he wants to fuck people up? He would assign one individually to every person. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any evil trying to get in your head, would there? So each one of us has to have one of these things assigned to us individually. And that's not a new idea. Early church fathers thought that. A lot of, especially your Gnostic beliefs, Gnostic Christian beliefs initially in the early church thought that too. And let's see, the Cathars in southern France thought that before the Catholic Church did a genocide on them. And the Cathars, they went a step further. They say one of the things actually lives in your body with you. And that's what I think. I mean, they kind of just, what would keep them from it? When you're conceived, what's to keep the one that's assigned to you from just going in and co-occupying your body with you? And, of course, naturally, you don't know he's there. But either way, whether he's outside looking in or inside looking out, it's always with you trying to corrupt your mind. Personally, I think that's why Jesus had to be born of a virgin, to prevent one of them from inserting itself into his body when he was conceived and born. But that's my opinion. And anyway, they're always there trying to get control of your mind, and they'll take whatever you give them. You don't have to give them anything, but everyone does. And because, they're smarter than you are, and you don't know they're there.
Boy, he back at it again, man. Mr. Lean with it, rock with it, man. I mean, what in the hell? What in the heaven? What in the world, man?
My choice! My choice! My choice! My choice!
And here's one more thing to say, Art, which may sort of provoke a whole string of questions. Possession of the real diabolic kind is generational.
Generational.
It's generational.
Passed on.
It's passed on by training. And it's a dreadful thing when somebody comes in who are perfectly respectable, good, normal American families, and they have reared their children to be Satanists and to accept possession, and they would, unless they stopped themselves, pass it on to their children. And it's been going on for well over 200 years. Yes. It's let me explain that. It's not that possession is passed on with semen, passed on with genes. No. It's that the same demon inhabits the members of the same family for generations. There are many types of demons. Some of them are quite intelligent, some of them are very stupid. Most of them are specialized in one thing and one thing only, and that's all they can do.
Or in a generational case of possession, does the parent actively teach this child in the dark way? Is it?
Oh yes, they assign the child to their demon. They're satisfied with that. The demon becomes what they call a familiar of theirs. And they make the child participate in ceremonies, Satanist ceremonies.
Wow. There's a lot of that going on in America today?
A lot. It's very hard to say a lot. That it goes on continually and sustainedly in certain areas, yes. And whether it's Boston or whether it's Montana or California or New Mexico, the place doesn't matter. The place doesn't matter. I must confess to you that there is a lot of very impressive generational cases are found or have been found, not all, but a lot of such cases have been found amongst old American families.
The old traditional...
Yeah. The old
originally came over on the Mayflower kind of American families?
That sort of business, yes. That sort of business, yes.
Okay, so the topic of this video is demonic possession. So let's go ahead and look at some of the individual types of possession, and they're not hard to find either. I just did a grok on this and came up with this. But anyway, there's oppression. This is usually considered the initial stage when the demon influences the person's life externally, causing misfortune, health issues, or emotional disturbances without fully possessing the individual. And I have noticed that the better people are, the more they get oppressed. Because the devil, he doesn't give a shit if you're not going to be any threat to him. It's the people who are a threat to him are the ones he oppresses. Then there's obsession. Here the demon begins to take control over the person's thoughts, leading to obsessive behavior, intrusive thoughts, or compulsive actions. The person might start experiencing mental disturbances like paranoia or depression. And intrusive thoughts. Those are thoughts that just pop into your head, sua sponte, and you don't want them there, but there they are. They just pop right in, and usually they're never anything good. They're always bad. And then we have possession, full demonic possession, where the demon takes control over the body, voice, and actions of the person. Signs might include changes in voice, speaking in unknown languages, xenoglossia, abnormal strength, or knowledge of hidden secrets. This stage is often depicted as the demon manifesting itself through the person completely. So, and listening to Malachi Martin in the last video, the one thing that they always look for is something that you wouldn't have any ability to know on your own, like speaking a different language. And in one movie about him called Hostage to the Devil, which you can get for free on YouTube, it showed a little girl speaking Latin. She was 4 years old. She didn't know how to speak Latin. Nobody around her ever spoke Latin. Yet there she was, speaking Latin to the priest. So, something's funny there. And she also knew details about the private lives of some of these guys, too. But, you also have what's called partial possession, sometimes distinguished from full possession, where the demon might not control the person entirely, but can influence certain faculties, or times. And we all know about that too. There's usually There's usually certain aspects of your personality that you can't shake. Traditionally, the word is called vices. If you have vices like gambling, hypersexuality, and you just can't seem to shake them, well, that's what that is. Smoking, what have you. But then again, you have full demonic possession. The demon has complete control over the person, often depicted in exorcism narratives. Personally, I think full possession is just, I think possession is on a spectrum, kind of like autism. You have full possession in one side, and then you have, just depression and maybe, a little bit of obsession on one side. And we all undergo all of these stages, and whether or not it gets to full possession is entirely up to us. Malachi Martin said that. And several others I've heard say that. The demon can't get you if you don't let him, if you don't, for some reason, give him control. Well, give it control. And usually it'll take, there'll be a combination of thoughts and oppression. They'll use the external environment and its influence on your mind. Keep in mind that you don't know he's there, and he's a lot smarter than you are. So, people, it's no wonder that we need a Savior in Jesus Christ.
But also, I came in contact with a few people who are very powerful, vastly wealthy, and utterly evil. The truth is that almost no one gets the dark opportunity to personally know such individuals. Trust me, it's not something to wish for. I am convinced, based on what I saw, that these people were perfectly possessed. What do I mean by that? The late Roman Catholic priest, Father Malachi Martin, who served at high levels in the Vatican, named a unique class of demon-possessed humans. He called them the perfectly possessed. His experiences of exorcism are documented in his 1992 book, Hostage to the Devil. When we think of demonic possession, automatically we get images from The Exorcist and other books and movies. These present terrifying symptoms that are absolutely unique to evil spirit possession. But when they manifest, it's an indication that somewhere in the victim there still exists a desire to be free and is fighting against the demons that are overwhelming them. Perfectly possessed people are the exact opposite. They are comfortable with the evil presence and don't want to lose it because it's a source of power and valuable gifts. None of them manifest the traditionally understood symptoms of possession, which makes them far more dangerous.
But then there's another category of possession that Malachi Martin sort of defined, and I think he's correct. It's called perfect possession. And if you've never met anyone perfectly possessed, then you need to thank your lucky stars, because it ain't something you're going to want. According to Malachi Martin, perfect possession is a state where the demon has taken such complete control over an individual that there's no longer any visible or behavioral sign of the person's original personality or will. The individual functions outwardly normally, but internally they are entirely influenced by the demonic entity. There's some people on TV that I think are perfectly possessed. Of course, I don't know, but there's a televangelist named Kenneth Copeland. Look at him. I think he probably is. But, I don't know. I might be wrong. Typically, they're people in positions of authority and power. I've known college professors, especially law professors, politicians, preachers, doctors, police officers. Outwardly, they're usually very charming people. Think psychopath. Think narcissist. Because ultimately that's what the devil's like, the demon is like. Psychopath. But I guess the difference between one of these goons and just a regular narcissist, you can feel it. You can just feel it by being around them or being in the same room with them. There's just an aura about them that's not, that's just utterly insalubrious. So now, people think you might be possessed. Well, here are the symptoms to know whether or not you really are. When a demon starts to take control of your body, a few things happen, such as a different voice. You may begin to speak in a different voice, one that sounds completely different than your normal voice. You may also suddenly start speaking in language that you don't normally speak. And I mentioned that. Different personality. Your personality may abruptly change as the demon takes hold of your body. You may experience wild mood swings and start doing activities that you would normally never do. You have new abilities. You may suddenly have new skills and abilities you never had before, such as being skillful with weapons or other technical skills. And you have supernatural knowledge. You may somehow know things that are only known to a select few people. As the demon possesses your body, their mind will begin to merge with yours, and they have knowledge of otherworldly things that you do not. Okay, now, what are they like? What are they like as persons? And I hate to call them persons, anti-persons. They're like persons, but they're the opposite. Everything's backwards with these guys. That's the reason why Satanists love to do things backwards. I met a Satanist online once, back when I was, single and dating, and, she could type backwards just as surely as she could type forwards, 100 words a minute or more. And I didn't, pursue anything with her, but it was, yeah. But, what are they like? They're absolutely material. They have no ability to conceive of anything beyond the material. Think computers. Think of a computer. That's kind of what they're like. Absolutely logical. And despite what most people think, logic is based on philosophical materialism. It's a study, it's a discipline of absolutes, and it's entirely material. They are absolutely rebellious because, being logical creatures, they either submit absolutely or they rebel absolutely. And I think that would be the difference, the primary difference between them and a good angel. The angel submits and the devil rebels. They have no creativity. None. The closest thing to creative they can come up with is being able to destroy in unique ways. But to create anything, nah, they can't do it. Absolutely material and absolutely negative. A negative can't create anything. And they're absolutely self-centered. They're a finite material being, and they have absolutely no idea how to feel the feelings of anyone else. No empathy whatsoever. And, of course, absolutely hateful. Hate is the expression of evil, just as love is the expression of goodness. Love seeks to create, and hate seeks to destroy. Now, where do we get this? All these traits. Well, there was a collection of documents called the Nag Hammadi texts, and I think they were found around World War II, maybe a little after. And they were a collection of writings by these guys. I think they called themselves Essenes. And they were Gnostics. And if you want to know about Gnosticism, look it up. I suppose most Christians would call me a Gnostic. But they described these creatures. They called them archons. And by the way, don't call them that, because Archon means ruler. If you call them that, you're giving them power. But they called them Archons, and there are several texts and documents where they describe what they're like. And that's it right there. Also, I know this to be true because, at the risk of sounding nutty, I've had some involvement, some interaction with these creatures, and I kind of know what they're like. And what you see right there is exactly what they're like. I'm not going to go into any detail, but they have names. They look like corpses, like a body that's been dead a few days, sunken black eyes, black gums. There's one in particular that doesn't have any nose, just snot gurgling out a couple of holes in his face. That's what they're like. And they are the most utterly insalubrious, filthy, negative. There are no cuss words that can adequately express what they're like. Just think of a cesspool sandwich. That's about it.
Nu gibt's nur dort, wo die Liebe